And the reason why we continue to engage in these political gymnastics is a question about whether or not you can ever say no to Donald Trump when it comes to any future service. And that is a basic concern. Another concern I have, you're very active in political organizations. In 2023, you served as treasurer for a political committee in the Club for...
Welcome back to Freedom Forge. If you believe in truth, accountability, and cutting through political noise, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe right now, because what we're breaking down today is something every American should be paying attention to. Today, we're reacting to a Senate hearing where a Trump judicial nominee is being grilled over questions about the 2020 election, political affiliations, and whether someone seeking a lifetime position on the federal bench can remain truly impartial. On the surface, this is about confirming a judge. But underneath, it's really about something much bigger: trust in the system, honesty under pressure, and whether nominees can give straight answers when it matters most.
Mr. Smith, welcome. Congratulations on the nomination, and congratulations on your family. Beautiful family that you have brought with you today as your support. So if our questions get tough on this side of the table, you've got reinforcements ready to spring into action, I'm sure. So let me ask a basic question. Will you acknowledge that President Trump lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden?
I acknowledge, as Chairman Grasso was talking about in his opening remarks, that under Article 2 in the 12th Amendment, that the Electoral College cast their votes in December of 2020. In January of 2021, Congress met to open and count those votes. And as a result of that process, Congress certified Joe Biden as the president.
Who won the popular vote in the 2020 presidential election?
The popular vote is not something that's mentioned in the Constitution. And
I'm
so
asking you, it's a basic question. If you took an 8th grader from Kansas and Missouri and Iowa and Illinois and said, who won the popular vote in the 2020 election, and they submitted an explanation of the Electoral College, you couldn't give them a passing grade. So let me just ask you, as an American citizen who I'm sure voted in that election, who won the popular vote in the 2020 election?
As an American citizen, as someone who, as Senator Schmidt said, cares about precision, I want to be very clear that, as a lawyer looking at the Constitution, it's the Electoral College that matters. And that process played forth in December of 2020 and January of 2021.
At the end of this exercise, at some point, there is going to be a video, I'm sure, that will be released, which will watch the painful explanation by every nominee from the Trump White House for the federal bench as to why they couldn't answer the basic question every single person in this room knows is true. Donald Trump lost the election in 2020 to Joe Biden. He may have regretted it, he may have denied it, but it's a fact. And the reason why we continue to engage in these political gymnastics is a question about whether or not you can ever say no to Donald Trump when it comes to any future service. And that is a basic concern. Another concern I have, you're very active in political organizations. In 2023, you served as treasurer for a political committee in the Club for Growth Action, Missouri. You also you owned a company called Pervinco, which did $15,000 in general consulting with the Club for Growth. According to your questionnaire, you're currently a board member of the Yorktown Fund and First Principles Action, both of which are right-wing organizations with connections to Leonard Leo. Based on public records, 3 groups involved in political polling and consulting are registered at your address: Remington Research Group, Madison McQueen, and Armada Strategies. By my count, that 7 different organizations that you've had some affiliation with all have one thing in common. They are right-wing organizations. What we ask nominees, even when Democrats are seeking positions like this, is there a ghost of a chance, if you became the circuit judge, that you would have any objectivity when it comes to political questions? And what has been found in the past in this committee is that if somebody engaged in, quote, socialist poetry in high school, they're disqualified. So now we have you with at least 7 right-wing organizations where you had some affiliation or leadership. Is there any ghost of a chance that you could be objective in the future?
Ranking Member Durbin, I would be fair and impartial in any case that came before me. And let me explain why But first, let me just correct some of the information in your question. Respectfully, the three of those organizations that you mentioned, I have no affiliation with. I know that there are some committee staff that had some questions. There was a clerical error filed in one report that listed my home address for three of those organizations. If you were to look at the State Ethics Committee, those are organizations that are based in different parts of the country, Florida, Kansas City, and California, and they've been reported at those addresses dozens of times in many different states into the FEC. It was a simple mistake on a report that I did not review. So I want to be clear that I have no affiliation with any of those groups.
We will correct the record.
As to the other organizations that you mentioned, one thing about me is I've been very grateful for opportunities to engage in our political process throughout the course of my life. It's something my dad and I did growing up because it was something fun as a father and son to go out and get to meet some of our elected officials. During college and law school and through my professional career, I've been able to be great friends with a whole bunch of people that don't share the same views as me. You have letters before you from people who are many different political parties who are strongly supporting me because they know the type of person that I am. Some of the letters, I think there's one from the dean of the University of Missouri Law School. He even notes in the letter that he and I don't agree on everything, but he still strongly supported me because of the character and the type of person that I am. And in every case that I've been involved in, some of which do have some political issues, I've depended on judges to set aside their personal views and treat my case fairly and impartially, to apply the law and the facts to the case that I've brought before them, and to do so without regard to partisan affiliation. And that's the type of judge that I would strive to be, to set aside those personal views and to apply the law and the facts, because that would be my role as a judge, not as a partisan or as an advocate, but as a judge, where any personal views I have would no longer be relevant.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, I'd like to enter into the record.
Right from the start, the questioning goes straight for the jugular. The nominee is asked a very simple question. Will you acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden? And instead of just saying yes or no, what we get is a long explanation about the Constitution, the Electoral College, and the certification process. Now, let me stop right there, because this is where a lot of people watching, especially conservatives, are going to have mixed reactions. On one hand, you got a nominee trying to be legally precise. Lawyers are trained to speak carefully, to avoid overstatements, and to stick to process. That's understandable. But on the other hand, this isn't some complex legal hypothetical. This is a basic question that most Americans, left, right, or center, expect a clear answer to. And when that answer doesn't come, it raises eyebrows. The senator doesn't let it go. He pushes harder, asking who won the popular vote. Again, instead of a direct answer, the nominee pivots back to constitutional language, saying the popular vote isn't what determines the presidency. Now here's my take as someone coming from a right-leaning perspective. I believe deeply in the Constitution. I believe the Electoral College exists for a reason. It's part of the structure of this republic, not a flaw. So technically, the nominee isn't wrong to emphasize that. But let's be real for a second. When someone asks who won the popular vote, they're not asking for a constitutional lecture. They're asking for a factual answer. And when that answer gets dodged, even if it's wrapped in legal correctness, it starts to feel like something else is going on. And that's exactly what the senator calls out. He basically says what a lot of people are thinking. This looks like political gymnastics. Now, here's where things take another turn. The questioning shifts from elections to the nominee's background, connections to conservative organizations, political involvement, and whether he can truly be impartial on the bench. This is where I think we need to be careful and fair. Because let's not pretend this only happens on one side. Nominees from both parties often have backgrounds, affiliations, and beliefs. That's not new. The real question isn't whether someone has opinions. It's whether they can set those opinions aside when applying the law. And to his credit, the nominee does push back. He explains that some of the alleged affiliations were clerical errors and emphasizes that he would be fair and impartial, just like judges are expected to be. Now that's important, because at the end of the day, the role of a judge is not to act as a political operative. It's to interpret the law. And if we start disqualifying people simply because they've participated in the political process, we're going down a very dangerous road. But here's the tension, and it's real. When someone appears hesitant to answer basic questions about elections, it makes people wonder, is this about legal caution or is this about loyalty? That's the underlying concern the senator is raising. Not just what the nominee believes, but whether he can ever say no if it matters. And this is where I think the conversation needs to be honest on both sides. Conservatives are right to push back against media narratives and political framing. But at the same time, clarity matters. If we want trust in the courts, if we want credibility in the system, then the people stepping into these roles have to be able to speak plainly when it counts. Because here's the truth. Americans are tired of word games. They're tired of answers that sound polished but don't actually say anything. Whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in that chair, people want honesty, not rehearsed responses. What we saw in this hearing wasn't just a nominee under pressure. It was a snapshot of a bigger problem: how disconnected political language has become from everyday understanding. And if that gap keeps growing, it doesn't matter which party you support. Everyone loses confidence in the system. That's why moments like this matter. Not because of who scored political points, but because of what it reveals about where we are as a country. So I want to hear from you. Do you think the nominee was being careful and professional, or do you think he was avoiding a straight answer? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you like the video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and stay tuned because we're going to keep bringing you real, unfiltered analysis of the moments that shape our world.